This is Learn from Others, where we interview a cross-section of successful individuals so you can learn from their experiences, achievements, and even their mistakes. We ask 4 questions that will educate and inspire. Greg Stanley will be your guide as we join our guest on a journey from adolescent daydreaming to success in today's world. Join us on this adventure as we learn from others together.
On the Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. I'm very excited to introduce our special guest, Greg Chang. Greg, thank you for taking us on your career journey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Well, before we find out what you're doing today, let's start at the very beginning, and please tell us, what did you want to be when you grew up?
You know, I actually had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up.
I'm right there with you.
I had a lot of interests, a lot of things I thought could be cool and fun and exciting, but none of them laid nicely into a career path. And so I actually struggled pretty early on and all the way through until after my first real job, trying to figure out, you know, what industry I wanted to be in. And so it was kind of a journey of discovery for me.
Well, speaking of which, what was your first real job?
So my first real job, and this is actually where you and I met, was at Kraft Foods. I was a management development associate, and that was a 2-year rotational management program at Kraft Foods. And it was a really great experience working for, you know, a Fortune 100 company, really great people, really great culture, and I learned just in a tremendous amount because I did everything from hauling crates of cookies from the back of a Walmart supercenter up to selling into corporate buyers at Food Line. So it was a really diverse experience for me.
Right. That was a very good program because it did give you all aspects of the business, correct? Even logistics and supply side as well.
Yeah, there was a month-long stint in a logistics branch where we were riding on frozen pizza trucks at 4 in the morning and dropping off DiGiorno, Tombstone, and CPK kitchen frozen pizzas. You know, what it really taught me was that the decisions that you make, the actions you make in one area can really affect people all throughout the rest of the organization. That rotational management program really gave me a holistic view on work and appreciated that you're just one part of a larger team and you need to be respectful of the other people that you work with.
Right. And that was hard work as well. I mean, even though you were there for a short rotation, you did see how much hard work and dedication went into that particular job and getting that product to the store in a quick and efficient way. Absolutely.
I remember one time it was leading up into holiday season. We were getting ready to put up all these new displays and rack 4x4s and the like. And I was rushing to pull out a crate from the back, and I ran over my ankle and busted it open. I was freaking out. I ran over to the pharmacy section of the Walmart Supercenter I was in, and the manager there, he was really nice, and he said, "Don't worry, you're not the first one to have done that." And we kind of laughed it off.
A lot of those pizza folks, they would wear shorts, and they would wear shorts in winter. I mean, they're walking in and out of frozen food trucks all day, and somehow their body acclimated in such a way. I'm like, are you crazy? You know, I'm there totally bundled up and everything. So,
yeah, just a totally different breed, but you really gain an appreciation for what they do. So it was a great experience.
That's awesome. Well, before we get to what you do today, did you have a favorite subject or hobby in high school or college?
My favorite subject was always English. I loved writing. I loved literature. I loved just written communication. I grew up being forced to read from a very young age, and then I grew to love reading. And, you know, that sort of liberal arts orientation, being really good at written communication, has really served me well. But I still am a voracious reader. I love books, and I love writing too. So English was always my favorite subject.
Well, if I end a sentence in a preposition, feel free to correct me, okay?
Okay, no worries.
Well, now that we understand the start of your career journey, what do you do today? And if you would, walk us through your resume, including the education you received. And I know you've already talked a little bit about the internship or the MDA program at Kraft Foods, but take us beyond that to the next roles afterwards that led to where you are today.
At the conclusion of the MDA program at Kraft, I was lucky enough to have a couple of offers to, one, work at the Walmart count in Bentonville, Arkansas, or two, to go up to Boston. And at that point, I kind of had a decision to make. And when I stepped back and thought about what I wanted to do with my life, it just didn't really align with sort of my mission and how I saw my life. And the thing that I began to realize, and what became a framework for me for just everything moving forward, is, I really wanted to find a career where I could, one, be good at it, two, enjoy what I was doing, three, do well for myself and my family, and then four, do well for others. And just my personal opinion, I couldn't see that path for me, partly because I just didn't really love selling, and that's what Kraft's customer development organization was. And then I also wanted to have a more direct line to social benefit and good. And then at the same time, while I was going through that decision-making process, I had a friend and former mentor of mine pass away from an adverse medical event.
Wow.
His doctor had actually totally forgotten to read the colorectal screening that had been done the year prior. And when he went in the next year after that, and this was around the time when I was making this decision, he had colorectal cancer, and it had metastasized. It really got me thinking about, wow, what's going on in healthcare? And this was back in 2008 when most people had a very sort of rosy picture of American healthcare. We all today kind of know where we're at. But for me, it was a revelation to know, hey, we have some of the best physicians and caregivers, but we have a really screwed up healthcare system. And so as I learned more, I decided I wanted to become part of the solution. And I knew I wasn't scientifically inclined. I said earlier, I'm a more liberal arts English person. And so I went and got a master's of healthcare administration at the University of North Carolina. And so that's basically a 2-year program that's like an MBA, but nested in a public health school.
Okay.
So I did that for 2 years. I threw myself fully into it. I'm just a very extreme person, and when I decide to do something, I go 110%. So as I was doing that program, I was doing 18 to 21 credits per semester. I also had 2 internships while I was doing the program so I could learn as much as possible. One at Duke, one at UNC, just learning in the Department of Surgery at Duke, Department of Medicine at UNC, so I could kind of see 2 different approaches. And then when I graduated, I took a full-time position at Duke, translated my internship into a associate administrator position, being the number 2 administrator in the Department of Orthopedic Surgery at Duke University Medical Center.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a good experience. It was my first foray into, healthcare operations and management, and it was a really awesome experience. I worked with world-class faculty who were, making breakthroughs and advancements in care, and I helped them build their businesses. It was really great.
Now, could you speak just for a second about the internships and how, I guess one way, and how they differ, and then how do they answer or clarify what you wanted to do? Yeah,
so, I did 2 of them, and I got as much experience as possible because I was trying to answer some internal questions I had. One of them being, is this really the path I should go on? I made this sort of bet, went all in, but I needed to validate my hypothesis. And so I did 2 different ones because I just wanted as much exposure as possible. The one at UNC in the Department of Medicine was more on the quality side, so I worked directly with a physician looking at how to improve quality of care. And the one at Duke was one more focused on operations and the management of a profit and loss statement for physicians. And so it was more on the business side of things. So the 2 internships kind of gave me different exposure and outlooks and perspectives and helped me make a better decision about my next step. So they were very, very valuable.
Okay, so those helped you clarify exactly what you wanted to do, and that led to the position at Duke?
Exactly. The other thing that's been really key is just relationship. Building those 2 internship experiences were great for an experience standpoint, but they're probably even more valuable from a relationship standpoint. So at Duke, I just built a great relationship with my supervisor, who was head of the department. He really took me under his wing and then, showed me and gave me this great opportunity. So at Duke, we had 15 different clinic locations. I think at the time about 45 different clinical faculty, so physicians who are both practicing medicine but also doing research. We had another 15 or so physician assistants, and all of them were practicing, generating clinical revenue, doing research as well. So it was a really fascinating operation to be a part of, and one that I still to this day feel really fortunate to have participated in. It was really great.
Right. I can see that. So where did you go after your experience at Duke?
After about 3.5 years, I got a little bored. Not because it wasn't a great place and we were doing great work. It was just the pace of things was a little slow. And at that time, I realized that I had an entrepreneurial spirit. And there was a project that the chairman of orthopedics put me on, which was how do we get in touch with physicians who trained at Duke. And so I created a online community for the faculty to stay in touch with alumni. And that idea back in 2011 or so was pretty novel. There were no physician social networks at the time. And so I said, that could be a really interesting thing if we built it up. Physicians could communicate with one another, share best practices, advance medicine. And so in the fall of 2012, I left Duke. 30 days after I decided I was going to do this, I packed up a U-Haul with all my things, moved from Durham, North Carolina up to New York, moved into a small apartment in Union Square, Manhattan with my co-founder, and we started a company called 4MD. So 4MD is a private physician social network, kind of like a LinkedIn for doctors. That was a pretty crazy time in my life. For the first 10 months, we bootstrapped it, meaning, a lot of what you see in the movies, cold pizza, ramen, no salary. It was a pretty crazy experience. We bootstrapped it for about 10 months, as I said. I was basically a week away from having no money to my name. But we closed a round of funding from an angel investor group, raised about $1 million, and we were sort of off to the races. Just a really, really great experience building something from scratch. We raised money. We got to a point where we partnered with about 80 different medical schools. And then in April 2016, we ended up selling 4MD to a publicly traded media company called Everyday Health. That was, again, just a tremendous experience. You build something as an entrepreneur, give your blood, sweat, and tears to it, and then we were able to sell it and have an event, which was great.
That's amazing. Now, what was the time from conception to selling it?
If you count the time when it was still an idea, it was almost 5 years.
Wow.
If you count the time that I was doing it full-time, it was 3.5.
Obviously, there's a big need there. Once you got past the first 10 months, it seemed like things started to happen.
Yeah, you get to a point where you either say, I was crazy, this was an insane idea, let me just pack it up and move on to the next one. Or you kind of get to a point where you reach escape velocity and you realize, oh, wow, this is actually something. And I reached the point where I thought it was crazy and I should have given up a couple times, but I kept going.
Right.
And there's a lot of talk about grit these days. There's that Angela Duckworth book. I really believe in that. Without that extra push, we wouldn't have gotten to where we did.
Wow. So you sold your business, and what happened after that?
So we sold the business, and as part of the acquisition, myself, my co-founder, and a few others came over to the acquiring company, Everyday Health. I worked at Everyday Health for about 2 years, working on 4MD, and towards the end of those 2 years, again, I got a little bit bored. We were doing sort of the same thing. We also realized that there was only so much growth we could have in the new ecosystem. And because of that, I started to get a little bit anxious, a little bit bored of sort of the routine. I think people started to notice a little bit. So I got asked to work on some corporate development work, which, for layman's term is mergers and acquisitions. And that was in the fall of 2017. Lo and behold, 1 month later, we signed a letter of intent to buy a company called eCareers. 30 days after that, we closed the deal in a very unusual timeline. We closed it in 30 days. Wow. After we acquired eCareers, we had to go through an integration process, which I ran. And, then about half a year later, I was asked to run Healthy Careers. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm the managing director of Healthy Careers, which is a online job board for physicians, physician assistants, and nurse practitioners. We've been around for about 25 years now. I'm based in Denver, Colorado. I've got a team of about 75, and it's just a really new but exciting period of my professional career, and just an exciting challenge, too, to go after a new market and go after a new set of problems.
Now, just to clarify, that's health and then small e careers, correct?
Correct. Yeah, health like email, eCareers.
Right. Yep. Just want to make sure that was clear. Well, could you walk us through a typical day or typical week as the managing director of this new business you're being involved with?
It's really interesting. People say this, and it's true. The higher you get up in your career, the less it is about the work that you do, and the more it is about the work you enable others to do. So my day-to-day is less about doing actual detail-level work and more about getting people together to think about important problems, prioritizing and helping them prioritize how we all spend our time, and then making sure that they have the resources and support to execute against those priorities that we've collectively set. It really is less about the actual work and more about the people, getting people motivated and aligned, getting people excited about the problems that they're working on, and making sure that they're fulfilled in what they do. So it's a really different set of problems than, what I have traditionally been accustomed to working on, but I think equally, if not more, fulfilling.
So it sounds like you're busy making sure people are equipped to succeed more than anything else, right?
Exactly. My success is when other people are successful. The real work that I do in my own when I'm sitting in my office is just thinking about what I can do to do that better. The concept of servant leadership, I think, is spot on. We, as leaders, need to be making sure that our people have what they need to be successful. And all of my energy is spent on that, really.
So what is one of the more challenging and rewarding aspects of this job of yours? And it sounds like after a little while, you kind of get the hang of it and you might get a little bored. It seems like this might actually buck that trend based on the level of involvement you've had so far.
Well, I think it may for a couple reasons. One, I'm really excited about the problem that we're solving for our hospital customers. Our customers are hospitals or practices who are looking to recruit physicians and other healthcare professionals. And when they are recruiting for those positions, it's because the communities that they serve don't have enough access to care, meaning they're calling up those institutions and they can't get an appointment in time. When a customer comes to us, it's because they need to reduce that time. So if we do our jobs well, that means they hire physicians faster, and that means those physicians see patients sooner, and that means those communities get served more efficiently and hopefully with better care. So it's a really cool problem to be solving. We can make a direct correlation between the work we do every day and the impact that we're having. Because of that, there's also other smart people who are trying to solve this problem, who are competitors with us, who are also doing an admirable job of solving this problem and creating solutions. And so it pushes us to innovate and continue to grow and become better. Luckily, we're sort of the leader in the market. We're the premium player. But there's other people who are nipping at our heels, and we've got to keep on growing and keep on getting better to stay number one. And I think that sort of dynamic is really stimulating and fun.
Right. Well, cool. Well, before we move on to our next question, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors. Do you enjoy your job and find it fulfilling? Or do you spend more time wondering what if instead of what's next? If so, contact Career Spa. Career Spa has extensive programs and curriculum and understands the challenges faced by individuals in transition. They can teach these success practices to be mastered for an effective job search. Answer that what if question by contacting Career Spa and asking their experts, what's next? Contact Career Spa at careerspa.net. Talent acquisition is key to building a successful organization. Talent Connections is a professional services firm that specializes in recruiting, including executive search, contract recruiting, talent acquisition consulting, and recruitment process outsourcing. Whether you are an individual or a Fortune 100 company, Talent Connections can connect you with success. Contact them at talentconnections.net. Well, welcome back. We just learned what you wanted to be when you grew up, which you weren't quite sure, and what you actually do today. So if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently?
That's a really tough question, because if you did something differently, you probably wouldn't end up where you are in a given moment. And I would say I'm pretty satisfied with where I am. I feel very fortunate to be in a position where I am the managing director of a company of this size at the age of 34. And I feel very fortunate to be in this position. I think probably the only thing I would thematically do different is from an earlier age, not just when I had graduated, but even earlier on, is take sort of a scientist sort of orientation to career development, meaning you have an idea of what you want to do, but you don't know what the perfect idea is yet. And the only way to make that determination is to set up a set of experiments. And you do that experiment, you learn from it, and the hypothesis that you had was either true or false. You learn from it, and then you keep on getting better. But there's no such thing as a failure, because even if you have a failed hypothesis, you learn more about what you should be and the person that you should become. And I wish I had done that earlier on, going all the way back to college and high school, so that I could get to where I am at even a faster pace. And I think it's also something where if you have that sort of outlook on life, you prevent being discouraged about quote-unquote failures that you have. In my mind, you're just getting smarter about where you should go on the path that you should take, the next road that you should take. So I think that's the only thing I would have changed, is having that sort of experimental mindset earlier on in my career.
That's a great point, because I've done some stuff in the past that didn't get traction, I guess might be the best way to look at it. And when I look back, I don't see them as failures, because there was such a huge learning curve that went into everything that I did. Even though maybe it didn't go to the next level, it wasn't a wasted exercise. The experience I gained was well worth it and continued to pays dividends into the future for sure.
I mean, exactly. It's a trite point when people say it's more about the journey than the destination, but cliches get that way because they have truth. And I really am a believer that the journey is just as, if not more valuable than where you are today.
Right. Well, now let's make the assumption that someone wants to do what you do, because I don't know that being so specific as the managing director for Healthy eCareers would be realistic, but what advice would you give them? And is there a typical career path you would recommend? Maybe as an entrepreneur, I don't know. Where would you want to take that?
The way I view myself is as a healthcare technologist, meaning that I am sort of in a leadership role in a healthcare technology company, and that is the pathway that I would like to continue to go on. So I would say there's a couple things. One, which is relationships, which I think is universally true and advantageous for any path you want to go on. No matter where you want to go, building important, meaningful, deep relationships with people will really propel you to the next step. I've been fortunate where I've had people take chances on me throughout my career because they believed in me. But they believed in me because we built a relationship over time of consistent interactions, of trust, of honesty, of integrity, and I think that can't be undervalued enough. I think that can't be overvalued enough. Sorry. So I think relationships are huge. Two, if you want to be in healthcare technology, I think that you would actually benefit from not going directly into the industry. I would say that healthcare in areas where it's not about practicing medicine is about 10 years behind in other things. And so I think there's a lot of benefit in learning core skills that can be universally applied in any industry, because you'll learn them quicker and deeper outside of healthcare and then applying them within. I guess the path to a point is not always a straight line in health, and I think that's definitely true in healthcare as well.
Now, you mentioned this a little bit, but did you have a mentor? And if so, how did they influence your career? My assumption is you probably had a few.
Yeah, I don't think I have anyone who I would say, oh, that is my formal mentor. I don't even know if those sort of relationships even exist anymore. I think it's more I've had advocates and supporters who have helped me along the way. One person was John Fritz at Kraft. He wrote my recommendation for UNC grad school, and I continue to stay in touch with him. Another person was Mike Gagnon, the executive director at Duke University Department of Orthopedic Surgery. He really helped me grow as a professional. And then, I've had a couple others through my startup days who are advisors to the company and who I remain in touch with, who became fans of me and support me just because we have a good relationship. So I don't know that I've had one mentor, but I've been fortunate to cultivate a number of advocates and supporters who I can call upon from time to time. And that's been, I think, a real advantage in my career.
That's awesome. That's really great. Like with most journeys, success largely depends on reliable transportation, and I'm a huge car enthusiast. So would you please tell us, what was your first car?
My first car was a 95 Jeep Grand Cherokee.
That's nice.
It was forest green, and I was lucky to have it when I did, because the year after I gave it back to my parents, it had a accident where it went into reverse on its own out of the garage.
Oh my gosh.
And into the woods. So glad I went to college when I did.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm glad it was just the woods and not your neighbor's house or anything like that. Well, what is your great dream car, if you have one?
I'm not a huge car person. I can appreciate a nice ride, but I don't know that I have one dream car that really jumps out at me. But I'm sure there are plenty that if you put in front of me, I would love to be behind the wheel of.
Right. Well, one great perk to some jobs is a company car. And if I had all the money in the world, I'd love to buy you a really cool company car. And based on your job, I've picked one out for you, okay?
Okay.
All right, it's a little bit of a stretch, but the way I encapsulated what you do is you help others succeed. And the idea of that is you tee them up for success. So you're helping place doctors quickly so that they can get to their patients. And I just tried to think of what car was ahead of the rest of the pack when it came to helping them succeed. And I'm going NASCAR on you. So I picked a 1970 Superbird. I'll send you a picture of it. It was Richard Petty's ride, 1970. It was so successful that they actually banned it from NASCAR. So I thought, all right, this is pretty much what you're trying to do, is to outpace all of your competitors, be number one as far as a provider. And that's the car I came up with. And it's crazy wild. It has a long nose, has a huge tail, it has the Roadrunner, logo. It actually beeps like a Roadrunner. So I will send you a picture of that, but that's the car I would pick if I had all the money in the world and could get you a cool company car.
I love it. That sounds way better than what I thought you were going to say.
Which was what?
When you started talking about helping other people, I said, is he going to say like a Dodge Caravan or something?
I would never do that to you. Well, thank you so much for taking us on your journey. What's the best way our listeners can learn more about you or your company?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can find my LinkedIn profile. It's linkedin.com/in/Gregory J. Chang.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking us on your career journey today.
Thanks, Greg, for having me. I really had fun doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. Where will our next adventure take us? Subscribe to find out. If you know of someone who has a cool career story or occupation, contact Greg through Instagram at Greg Stanley LFO. That's GregStanley LFO. And we will see you soon as we learn from others together.